The Star Stood Over. My name is Daniel Vallis and welcome to our channel. We're at December 27th, 28th right now, and a lot coming together that we've been watching for quite some time, so I'm not going to rehearse it here. The timeline is updated and it's in the Google Drive. The link is in the description box to it and to our other resources as well. There is a lot coming together with so many celestial reminders, geopolitical reminders, and so many prophetic events that we were told to be on the lookout for, and also so many reminders that we see reminding us of our Redeemer and that He is coming back for His servants and He wants to find us watching. And He gives the example of the second and third watch, and also the bride would expect her bridegroom around midnight in the same time pattern as well. We have been on this journey since the Star of Bethlehem reminder signs, and that's what they were. The world was reminded of them about a year and 7 months ago, and this is what we've been watching, and it caught our attention that we are reminded of events that had not happened since the time of Christ. And here they were again, right in the prophetic time window at the last generation when we are expecting our Redeemer to return. And we are told to look up and we will see celestial signs. And so we have been watching these signs and been following the patterns that they've been pointing us to, that we need to be readying ourselves and purifying and preparing ourselves. Our journey so far has been a year and 7 months, roughly, right within the wise men's journey pattern. And we're going to look at that some more today. But so much coming together here right now. And we know we are running out of time and that our redemption is drawing nigh. He is nigh even at the doors. He has given us so many things to remind us that time is running out, and He is coming back during the days of Noah and Lot. In our last video, we talked about how the heavens are divided into 12 different chambers, and that is because they represent the appropriate star constellations that are in that area. That's the whole reason they are divided. So the chambers won't stray too much from the constellation that they are supposed to go with. And we talked about 2,000 years ago, the chamber count would have started, and divided start would have been here, based on the vernal equinox, and then that would have started the ram, and then the bull, and then the twins and Cancer, and the lion. And that's where it was at the time of Christ. And then also we talked about how right now, 2017, with the spring equinox, that would start a chamber division there. But we have to keep in mind that the Chaldeans were still alive and up and running in this time. They would not switch the ram up to here. No, they just start counting the chamber with Pisces, because that's the whole point. The spring equinox in Aries is why they started counting at Aries at that point. And so somewhere, once it started transitioning to Pisces, they just start counting the chambers at Pisces. And so the chambers would still stay in pretty much the same area even today. This area roughly would still be the lion. Exactly, still in this area. It's a slight difference. So we can tell by looking at the sun how the sun travels and divides into 12, and that is a reference for us when we look at Jupiter and how they also use that to determine the boundaries. And particularly since we're looking at Jupiter and its movement and how it moves through the heavens is different than the sun, so we use this as a reference of knowing historically this whole chamber area was for the lion anyway. And so when we see a border being declared here, we can strongly state that yes, this would be the lion section here, starting the house of Judah. So either way you slice it, whether at the time of Christ or at the time today, it's still the lion area. And we also talked about the camp division, and some people had questions about how they've seen different depictions that are in a cross shape. Those are incorrect, actually. The Bible passage that we looked at, he emphasized, placed the camps far off from the tabernacle. They were not close up to it. It did not form an intersection of the camp. There's a huge empty gap in the middle. The tabernacle had the Levites around it, but still the rest of the camp was quite a ways away from the tabernacle. And you'll find even the rabbis talk about how it's approximately about a half a mile away. God said put it far off. There is no cross shape. And plus, when you look at the order that God gives, He's laying out the list in relation to the tabernacle, and He's reading through in a clockwork order of the tribes and how they go. And He even states, next to, and then He comes to the next one, Reuben. He's describing it going around the tabernacle. but you still have the symbolism that would be seen by divided into the 4 quadrants and the 4 brigades. You'd still see the message there, but it wasn't in a physical cross shape. It's either a gigantic donut shape or as a gigantic empty square shape. And you'll see a lot of scholars come up with that as their depiction. Again, there's some variation which tribe went on which side of the major leaders, but still is either a square shape because he was reading going around, or it's going to be a circle shape. And I lean toward the circle shape because he uses that pattern a lot in other places. And again, looking at the compass, north, south, east, west, 90-degree arc is east. And a lot of people try to force the cross picture by saying east is only one slim direction going that way. No, it's 90 degrees arc fanning out from where your center is. So that's why we depict it with a circle or going around the tabernacle. You still have the cross message, but the physical layout was spread around the tabernacle. And so for our study today, we're going to be looking at a very important celestial event coming up, Jupiter at Station 1. And this is very important because it relates to the wise men's journey, which is what we are on. And from the very beginning of our journey with the Star of Bethlehem reminder signs, the journey we have been on mirrors what happened the first time in so many ways. This is why we're watching. Even over a year and 7 months, there have been multiple, since that start point, multiple ones along that celestial marker and that celestial journey that we've seen that remind us exactly of the time of Christ. Exactly when Christ came the first time, and we are looking for him the second time. So it would be foolish not to look at everything we've been seeing and see the choreography and pageantry over time, over this year and 7 months, and not to say God is trying to draw our attention to something very important. And he wants us to look up. What does he want us to look up and see? He wants us to see the story of our redemption and how our bridegroom is returning for us. Our Lord is returning for his servants who are watching. We are on a journey, and we are called to be wise. We are called to be faithful servants. So this is why we are diligently seeking him, because we have been shown so much. And it would only be wise to continue to watch what he has shown us, and even more so, giving more wisdom and insight lately of how it all comes together. That should even reassure us at this long time into our journey. We are all weary, we are tired, yes. But when we can see the Lord still working, bringing us insight of what we did see. When he told us to look up and see, we didn't quite know exactly what we were looking at. We could see some things going on, but even now he's given wisdom of what we did see and how it ties into things that are coming together right now and geopolitical events and everything coming together right now. We are given more wisdom on what we did see when we did look up and we diligently decided to go forward and seek him. And this is why we go forward. We've been shown so much. Let us keep going forward. And particularly in the days ahead, around February 6th, that's when Jupiter is going to be at Station 1. And that's when it's going to appear to stop for approximately 2 weeks, this orange cone here. And the more that we look back at the wise men and their journey and the events and the celestial signs that they saw at the time of Christ and how they were viewing the celestial heavens, what they saw when they looked up, the more we compare that with where we're at right now, it should seriously arrest our attention that we're seeing almost the exact same thing. And we're told to look for him the second time, and so to understand what we're looking for, we need to understand what happened the first time. And that's the only way we'll understand what we're looking for the second time. And it should seriously catch our attention that Jupiter is going to be arriving at Station 1. It's going to be starting its retrograde in just a few days. Because this celestial event is described in the story of the wise men. And it is when they finally came to the king's house. We do not know the day or hour, but we see a strong reminder of when the wise men were reaching the end of their journey, when they were almost at the end of their journey. They were tired, they were weary, they were probably hugely disappointed by the reactions they saw in Jerusalem. They had their moments of high expectation and then a letdown. They were tired and weary too, but God gave them at the very end of their journey one more celestial sign, and the Bible records this celestial sign, and it records that they also rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Even in the midst of their weariness and their tiredness and their disappointments, God gave them one more sign, and they were able to rejoice and see the confirmation that they were on the right journey and that they were about to meet the King, and it reaffirmed many things that they had seen before. New insight and one final sign right at the final mile marker. We are reminded in Luke 21:28 of Christ's instructions to his disciples. This is an instruction from Jesus himself that applies to us. It's as though Jesus was telling us. He says, when these things begin to come to pass, when these prophetic things begin to come to pass, I want you to look up. I want you to lift up your heads. Why? He doesn't say why. He says, for your redemption draweth nigh. He doesn't tell them what they're supposed to see. He doesn't tell them what they're going to look up and see. He says, when you see prophetic events coming together, this is what you should do. Look up. The instructions are so simple. When you see prophetic events coming together, when you see even relating to the last generation, and you see things coming together with Israel, and you see so many things telling you that you have an expectation of your redemption drawing nigh, look up. This is so simple of an instruction. He wants us to look up. Jesus, our Redeemer, our Bridegroom, wants us to look up at the stars, implying we will see something, and we'll know it when we see it. And it will tell us that our redemption is drawing nigh. And the more that we study the story of redemption and the story of our Redeemer, especially the story of Shiloh, we will have a very good idea of what we will see when we look up, when we do what our bridegroom says. Now, the other day I was staying up a little bit later than normal working on our last video, and the Lord impressed upon me to go out and take some pictures of the night sky. And I could tell and I could see Jupiter from my office, and my office is in a building next to my house, so I am always looking up at the night sky as I'm going to the kitchen for a snack or something. I could see Jupiter, I could see Leo, and so I knew it was a really good time to take pictures. Plus there's a crystal clear sky too. And it was about 1:30 at night, but I dragged up the tripod and the camera, and we climbed up the trail to where I can best get a view of the eastern sky, and I was able to get a few pictures. I don't have the best camera, so I had to brighten it a bit up in Photoshop just to get you an idea of what I even saw with my own two eyes. That is so amazing about these celestial signs. You can see them with your own eyes. You don't need binoculars. You don't need telescopes. You just go outside and you have to look up. You lift up your heads. It's so easy. And especially when you go out and actually look up into the night sky, and this was seen about 1:30, so it's not seen until right after midnight does it start coming up over the horizon. But you could see it with your own two eyes. And my camera can't even capture how big it is. And I can't even zoom out enough to capture it all either. But this celestial sight takes up a huge portion of the night sky, and it's incredible how much you have to look around to see it and to look up and be able to see it. But it's so there. You can't miss it if you're looking for it and you got a clear sky. But my camera, I had to put it on a long exposure to even get this picture. So Jupiter's a little blurry, but Jupiter's nice and bright. You can't miss it. It really stands out. And right there's Spica. And here's the main torso of Virgo, her right arm and her left arm here. Here's Zavijava. And then over here is Regulus, which means you can follow it up and you'll see the sickle shape right around there, which tells you the body of the lion is right here. And the tail is right here. Here's Denebola. And right here's the hind leg that we're most familiar with. And of course, the Chaldeans also took the leg down to Zavijava. So you can see so much just with your own two eyes when you go out and look. You could see the whole story there. And right here is Corvus, the crow, and then the cup's right in this area. I can't quite see it too well in this picture here, but you could see it a whole lot better with your own eyes. And then Hydra's running all along underneath of it. If you look in the Shiloh booklet, we have these constellations in there, so you could just take it out with you and you'll be able to see the story in the heavens so clearly. And we can look up and we can lift up our heads and we could see the story. We could see the rehearsal of things that even the wise men saw. We have very little trouble actually seeing it. We need more homework to understand what they saw and understand what we're looking at, and that's what we've been doing on most of our journey, is just trying to understand what they were seeing. and why they were so excited about it. But then when we see the parallels between then and now, and we see celestial events and Star of Bethlehem reminders that hadn't happened since then, events that they saw with their own eyes, without binoculars, without telescopes. They saw him come, they saw the signal, they saw the signs in heaven the first time, and we're looking for him to come the second time, and we can look up and see that our Redeemer, the one who came the first time, is getting ready to appear the second time. Here's a shot from Stellarium of my view here near Birmingham that gives you a better idea of what I was looking at. But again, you have to get a fisheye view almost to really get an idea of what you can see with your own natural eyes. You can see so much. But again, I was looking toward the east and toward the south, and Jupiter, and let's see here, Leo. Yeah, there's Leo right up there. You can see the sickle shape right there. Regulus, the tail. Then here's Zavijava, the arm of Virgo, the body of Virgo. It's all coming up from the east, rising up in the south, and then it goes and sets down in the west. And so this is, again, why it's called the Chambers of the South, is because they ride high in the sky toward the south. So this is when you have a best view of them, and when you can take the best picture of them, because they're going to be rising in the east, and sometimes there's haze there and stuff. You can't quite see it there. Or trees like I have around here. So when they're riding high in the south, you got the best picture of them. And then here's the cheat sheet of what was there. But again, you could just stand out there and I could see all of this with my own eyes. The story of our redemption. The sign of what we see when we look up, and we are told to look up. It's a command. It's an instruction. Are we listening to it? We can't say we're looking for him if we're not following his instructions to look up. And a big component of understanding when he's drawing nigh is looking up and then studying what we see when we look up. That is our homework assignment. That is the whole part of diligently seeking. He doesn't tell us what we're going to see. That's our homework. We got to diligently seek out, what are we seeing here? What are these rare and unique celestial signs? What is the choreography? What is the pageantry going on here? That is how we diligently seek him. We do our homework. Now, one thing to note, and this is just some astronomical FYI that will come in handy soon, is it rises in the night sky and 0 degrees off the horizon. That's, at the horizon. But then later on in the evening, Jupiter and Leo and all them, they were going to be riding high in the sky. And we could see just on this that they were about 50 to 60 degrees up in that window. So standing down on the ground, you're looking about 50, 60 degrees upward into the sky. Now this is very important when we understand how high we're looking up in the chambers of the south. When you go outside and look, especially if you ever looked for days when there's meteor showers or something like that, if you just go outside and stand there and look up at the constellations, pretty soon you have a crick in your neck, because you're turning your head back quite a bit to look at what's in the chambers of the sky. And if I'm going to be outside looking at the constellations or just the stars for a while, I like to lay down on a lounge chair, because that's the best way so my neck doesn't kill me. But that way you can see 90 degrees up. That's really the only way you can see 90 degrees up easily, is if you're laying on your back. But normally you're looking straight ahead. That's 0 at the horizon. But a lot of the celestial events that are going on in the Chamber of the South, especially this time of year, with Leo and Virgo and Jupiter, they're seen 60 degrees up into the sky at their highest point, around there. And so, again, your head weighs about the same amount as a bowling ball. So by the time you throw your neck back and you're even looking up at 60 degrees, it feels like you're looking straight up. You're really having to lift up your head to see the chambers of the south at different times of the year. Does this sound familiar? And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up, and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. He's telling us, I want you to look up, not just out at the horizon, not just at the sunsets or where you're used to looking. I want you to look up. Lift up your heads up. I want you to throw your chin out in the air there and really lift it up and tilt your head back. I want you to be looking up to an area of the sky where you don't normally look. And you'll see something. And he'll tell you that your redemption draweth nigh. So simple instructions. We have to look up. And we have to lift up our heads and then study and seek out what are we seeing. And we can ask the Lord for wisdom. Okay, Lord, what am I looking at here? And He can give wisdom, and He's given incredible wisdom and insight, especially over the past few days, bringing together so much of what we have seen on the wise men's journey. And we know our redemption draweth nigh. We are reminded again of the wise men on their journey. At the very end of their journey, they were given one more celestial sign that the Bible tells us they had to look up to see. This is very important because we have a celestial event coming up in just a few days, and we can see the early arrivals of it now that we already have to look up and see. So let's study the wise men's story. As we look for Him the second time, we know He appeared once already to pay our atonement, to pay our redemption. We are looking for Him already before He's here, knowing He will appear the second time to pick up His purchased possession. And so when we follow these instructions, when we look up and we lift up our heads, we realize this is a major clue for understanding the celestial signs. We've talked about the camp of Israel in relation to the cardinal points, and that the correlation with the celestial heavens and the chambers in the south and the divisions of the 12 suns represented by the 12 star constellations. This pattern goes through so many things, and we had to have this other understanding to fully understand what the wise men saw at this particular end point of their journey. Now, standing wherever you are, when you look up to the chambers of the south, you are really going to be throwing your head back to look up to 60 degrees, or in that area. That's riding high in the sky. From your perspective, and the way you have to throw your head back, and you got all that weight on your neck, it feels like you are looking straight up. So keep that in mind. And we're familiar with the passage, "Behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him." Okay, so let's keep in mind these chambers of the south, the cardinal directions, and let's see what the wise men saw. Okay, they are wise men from the east, so they came from, most suspect, the area of Persia. They came from the east. Where are they going? They're going to the city of Jerusalem, the capital city of Judah, the city Ariel. This was their expectation, that they would find the King of the Jews right here in Jerusalem. Now, what faced east? The temple faced east. And this gives us an idea of how Jerusalem was laid out, knowing the temple was facing east, the direction that the wise men came from. Now, where was Jerusalem located? What was the name of that area? It was called Judea, after the tribe of Judah. Remember, Jerusalem used to be the capital city of Judah. They were the ruling tribe. They were the tribe that led the way in multiple ways. But at the time of Christ, this was Judea. And the Sanhedrin was still ruling from here. They still had the symbolic scepter. They still had authority at this point. Now the wise men came from the east. They came to Jerusalem. And they started asking everybody, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Because he was going to be of the line of Judah. For we have seen his star in the east. We were back home in the east, and we saw the star. We saw these celestial signals telling us that he is here and that he was born. And we are come to worship him. And we need to ask ourselves, why are we on our wise men's journey? Why are we diligently seeking him? There's a lot of different motives at this time, and if your only motive is researching all this for morbid curiosity or just because you want a rapture date, then you are looking for the wrong reasons. We should be diligently seeking him. Not diligently seeking the rapture. Not diligently seeking some end-time prophecy type stuff. No, the whole reason we're going to be rewarded is because we're diligently seeking him. And we will diligently seek him when we are serving him first and highest above all else in all areas of our life. And now is a good time when we need to examine what areas in our life are taking the lead, that we are diligently giving our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength to. Are we serving Christ first? The wise men came to worship him. They wanted to see him for no other reason than to come and worship him. And you remember that all Jerusalem was disturbed by these wise men because nobody knew what they were talking about. They didn't even know the star. What star are you talking about? You mean the king's been born? They had no clue what the wise men were talking about. And everybody started talking about it. Everybody knew that they saw a celestial sign. And so then they were directed to Herod's palace, and Herod's palace was on the west side of the city in Herod's fortress area. And then when Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. We've talked about this before, but it took them a while to make observations and to come to a conclusion, and then they left on their journey. So it was quite a while after the first celestial signs that they saw. It was over a year. Now, we're not going to have time to go through all the signs a day. Maybe, Lord willing, in our next video we'll break it down more. But if you just go by one of the rare celestial events that probably signaled the start of when they said they would have seen the star, the celestial signals that signaled the Messiah's birth, that would have been approximately 1 year and 5 months ago, from the time when they arrived in Jerusalem and were talking with Herod. And they could tell him, we saw it about a year and 5 months ago, on such and such a date for them. Herod wanted to know the time of the very first sign, because this is very critical to understanding the time frame of the arrival and everything. And so we have to keep this in mind when we consider our wise men's journey. Always keep in mind what we saw all the way at the beginning of our journey, what started our journey, even before we started taking major steps forward in faith. What was the first signs that caught our attention, that reminded us of the wise men's journey? Because understanding that first point will be very important to understanding where we are now. So after he inquired of the time and learned when it appeared and got an idea of how old the child was, then he sent him to Bethlehem. Okay, where is Bethlehem? Well, when we look at a map, Bethlehem is due south of Jerusalem, so going straight south. And Bethlehem is not that far away, and you'll remember that even Bethlehem is in Judea. It's even referred to several times, Bethlehem of Judea. But again, Bethlehem's not that far away. It's only about 10 kilometers, 6.2 miles south from Jerusalem. So it's not going to take them too long to get there. I mean, they are traveling by camel, so it's going to take some bit. But consider they arrived in Jerusalem. They spent some time talking apparently to a number of people there, asking, where's he that's born king of the Jews? And then they got directed to Herod's palace, and then they got pushed off to the side for a while. Then they had a meeting with Herod again. Then he told them to go to Bethlehem. So it's very late in the day. It's probably even past evening at this time that the wise men departed from Jerusalem. When they had heard the king, they departed, and they were heading down to Bethlehem. And it is in this context that we are given some important celestial information. Where are they? They have just left Jerusalem. They are heading and looking toward the south. They are looking toward Bethlehem. And then what does the Bible say? And lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them. Now, there's two ways to read this, and one, most people would assume, well, that was meaning it was in front of them. They could see it in front of them. And that's not quite correct, because the wording there is the idea of something that's gone on before you, and it's used that way several other times too as well. But the idea is they saw the star that they saw back in the east, and they knew, because they knew its path and what it would be doing over the months and weeks ahead. They knew that it was basically going on ahead of them from when they saw it in the east. And that's the idea of the wording there. The star in its movements was going on before them. It was going on in its course, and they saw it in the east, and now where they are again, they're almost coming and crossing paths again. They're seeing each other again, knowing it went on before them. It kept on going after they saw it. And now they're seeing it further along in its journey. It went before them. The Bible says, till it came and stood over where the young child was. And here it's given very specific astronomical, celestial information. It's putting it somewhat into layman's terms, but accurately describing what the star was doing. Till it came and stood over where the young child was. And note their reaction. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Why were they so excited when they saw the star again at this point? Well, to understand why they were so excited, we need to understand what does it mean for it to come and stand there. The star had gone along in its journey, and it had now come to a point in time where their paths crossed, by the way, where it is at this exact moment where it was coming to station. It was standing visually in one place compared to all the other stars. What was normally a wandering star and moving in relation to the other stars was now standing. It stood. It was not moving compared to the other stars. And what they were seeing was Jupiter coming to station 1, getting ready to start its retrograde motion. And this information is not new to me. You'll find a lot of other researchers who break it down more in depth, and a lot of articles and books even and videos about it. So I'm just explaining it to you. So Jupiter was getting ready to start retrograde, and it had now reached station 1 where it had stopped. It stood visually at this exact moment in time. Right at the same time, though, that they were coming and seeing it. Jupiter at station 1. And remember, the peak is only really a day, but it's spread out over about 2 weeks where it just visually looks like that till it starts moving again. But even the Chaldeans back then knew the peak day of it. And no doubt the wise men had their almanacs and their research notes and journals with them. They knew when Jupiter would be at true station 1. And so here they are looking toward the south, seeing the star which they had seen back in the east. They knew it was going to be journeying on ahead in time, and they knew where it would be and what it would be doing over the days ahead. And here they are crossing paths with it again, so to speak, where they see it again, and they realize when they look up that they are seeing it standing over where the young child was. Now, at that time of year when they saw it, at station 1 then, it was 67 degrees up in the night sky. So again, that's practically looking straight up from their perspective, from anybody's perspective. That's practically looking straight up. So they're looking toward Bethlehem, and they're having to crick their necks all the way back and say, wow, Jupiter is standing right over Bethlehem, right where the child is, right on this exact same day that we're coming here. This is why they were so excited. They could not have planned this themselves if they tried. Something they saw a year and 5 months ago. They started on their journey, talked to so many different people, got different directions, and they are finally coming to Bethlehem, and they realize that they are coming into Bethlehem on the very day of a celestial marker of the very same star that they saw that showed them a lot of other unique, rare celestial events that led them on their journey. They rejoiced with exceeding great joy because from an astronomical perspective, and astronomers are looking at each other and saying, can you believe it? Jupiter at station 1 today, on the very day that we're going to Bethlehem, we're here. And it's at station 1. What are the odds? This is like cherry on top of the cake. This is why they're so excited, because it was something that astronomers would be excited about. But they knew how rare it was for that to be at station 1 on the very day when they were coming into Bethlehem where the king was. That's why they were so excited, because there was no way they could have planned that. One final reminder and confirmation sign right at the final finish line. So, when did they see this sign? Well, again, it was late at night. They left Jerusalem after they had been there a while, and then it would take them quite a while to travel 6.2 miles by camel. It's already probably evening, and the Bible tells us that they saw the star and they saw it overhead. And that gives us a very good idea of when it was, because they saw it high in the sky. It stood over where the young child was, which means Jupiter was somewhere around its zenith, when it was going to be highest in the sky. Now, for that time of the year when Jupiter was at station 1 there, Jupiter would have been at its highest point in the sky, the night sky, around 2 to 6 a.m. in the morning. And again, remember, they left Jerusalem. It's probably already pretty late in the day when they left, and they traveled, and they're seeing the stars. So it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. It's after midnight when they are seeing the star, which means it's somewhere around the end of the third watch, somewhere around there, at least in the third watch, when they are even seeing this sign. Very interesting to consider a parallel there. They saw it past midnight. And where were they? They were nigh, even at the doors of where they were going, where the king was. There are so many parallels that we could see when we understand what were they looking at, what did they see, and how did they look at it, and what are we seeing on the horizon here soon too as well. Well, the wise men, they went into the house, they worshipped the Christ child, and no doubt started telling the story of how their journey started, what started their journey. And Scripture doesn't give us many details, but I can imagine the wise men just so excited. The Bible does tell us they had exceeding great joy. They were so excited here at this last mile marker to arrive at the house and then have a celestial marker of this same king, the child, right overhead. Right at this time, you could almost see them so excited, almost hyperventilating of, wow, where do we start? Wow, we've seen so much. It's been incredible. It's been an incredible journey. Let's go outside. I'll show you the star. It's right overhead. And I can imagine them going outside, one of them probably even holding the young child Jesus, and showing Mary and Joseph and the young child the bright star that's in the heavens above. The very same star that signaled the Messiah that they were looking at face to face. It is when they saw this final star, this final sign, they were not even at the doors of going into the house where the king was. This is our expectation. The hour is very late. It's past midnight. We have so many reminders that we should expect to go to the king's house. We know we are not even at the doors. Now, it was pretty late, and so they were probably up late into the early morning talking, but eventually their adrenaline probably ran out and they probably had to crash. So, like the custom there, they probably stayed overnight. And you remember, they were warned in a dream that they should not go back to Herod, and so the very next morning, they departed into their own country another way. This should catch our attention that right with a sign signaling they were right at the door, also quickly followed up with a departure. The wise men departed, and they went into their own country. This wasn't their country, they were pilgrims and strangers there. But then the Bible also tells us that as soon as they left, that God told Joseph to flee into Egypt. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt. They left town too. There were two departures right after they saw this final celestial sign, Jupiter, at Station 1. And it's interesting that he went into Egypt, the very country where the Shiloh prophecy was even given and the context it was given in. So many parallels and pictures of the last celestial sign that the wise men saw right at the doors, right before a departure. And what about Herod? Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Now, Herod historically was very paranoid of any rivals. And so we have to keep that in mind. The Bible emphasizes he was exceeding wroth. He was very, very upset when he found out the wise men were not coming back, and he probably got word that people saw him going another way. So this guy who's already historically paranoid and hates rivals, he is livid at this moment. And so he gives an order based on the time which he learned from the wise men of when they first saw the star. He picks a max limit of 2 years old that he is comfortable with. Again, remember, he is enraged right now. He is angry, and he is comfortable in that passionate state of setting a max limit of 2 years old, because he knew the Christ child was comfortably under 2 years old. Not close to it, but comfortably several months away from 2 years old. 2 years old made someone who was extremely angry, made them comfortable setting that as a limit. And it's interesting the Bible records this for us, because that helps hedge in our understanding of we are comfortably away from 2 years as well, and we're right around the same pattern as the wise men as well. Now, in our Shiloh booklet, we have a lot of references. It's really not a booklet, it's a book. It's a reference book. There's a lot to it. But we do have the latest notes from this study in there too as well, so definitely check that out. They're in the appendix section. We are still working on the 3rd edition. It's going to be a while for that, but the Lord is continuing to give information, insight, so it's good to see that this information is coming together that will be needed for a 3rd edition. But in the appendix on page A2, we do a comparison. We have a comparison of then and now, the first time, the first coming of Christ, compared to what we've been seeing now. We've been seeing so many parallels of the exact sequence. The Star of Bethlehem reminder signs that drew our attention are almost an exact mirror of the ones that caught their attention, right? Almost at the exact same place, too. And then they saw different conjunctions, 3 major ones. We'll study that later. But then they saw the Bethlehem sign at station 1 of the next retrograde. They saw a year and 5 months after the initial events, just like our journey. See, their journey started off around the head of the lion when they saw several different significant events, and then they saw a series of events through this portion. And then somewhere after those events, after they observed those, then they started their journey. And then they got to Jerusalem, and it's about the time that Jupiter was at station 1 of the next retrograde. It was quite a while from the time when they had observed it, and that's why Herod asked them, when did the sign start appearing? That was about a year and 5 months ago for them, and for us it's a year and 7 months where we are now, going back to when the first star appeared for us that caught our attention. That hadn't happened in 2,000 years. When we understand, what are we supposed to look up and see? What do we see? We see something. What's going on here? The more we study what happened the first time and what the wise men saw, the celestial signs they saw, when they looked up, when they lifted up their heads, what did they see? What did they understand about what they saw? Using their technical, scientific perspective, but then also their understanding of the messaging as well and the symbolism. What was involved in what they saw? How can we see it like they saw? And so when we look at the celestial signs that are going on right now, going back a year and 7 months, looking back at when our journey started, we have an idea of what this is telling us and where we are now by understanding what happened the first time. We've had a lot of celestial events. We had a lot of geopolitical events and prophetic events in the last generation and peace and safety. There's so many events that have been leading us up to this time. The Star of Bethlehem reminder signs, reminding us of our responsibility, that we should be wise. We should be the wise bride. We should be the wise servants, diligently seeking Him and paying attention to what we are being shown when we look up and see stuff, not just ignore it, not just brush it off as, oh, well, that's neat. No, study. Why is this happening now? Why is this going on now, 2,000 years later, right when we are expecting our Redeemer to come? Surely this means something. Surely seeing this pageantry rehearsed should be a sign. And it certainly ties in with so many other things we see. It would be wise to understand what we're being shown. That's why they're called signs. And so we have to look back at the first time to understand what we are seeing here at the second time when those very same similar celestial events are repeating. We see that time is running out. We see we are approaching many mile markers of remembrances and, in a sense, asking us where we were on our learning journey when we first saw the star appeared, and when we saw certain milestones on our journey. Just like the wise men, when they saw the final celestial events quite a ways from their initial start, they were at the door. They were literally just a few steps away from seeing the King. And is this not what we are told, that we will know that our redemption is drawing nigh? And at the doors, even at the doors? God wants us to know, but He wants us to watch. He wants us to do research. He wants us to diligently seek Him. And if we pay attention, like He told us, and we look up, and we lift up our heads, and we observe these unique celestial signs, and then study what is all behind it, then we can seek Him even more and understand more about what He is showing us. We do not know the day or hour, but we are told and given things to watch and to keep our eyes on and to keep in mind, knowing that our Lord is returning in a certain time frame. And He wants to find us, the wise servants who are watching and ready to open the door for Him, knowing He is nigh even at the door. Are we making ourselves ready? The wise men were going to the King's house. They saw the sign right on the doorstep. We don't know the day or hour, but we see a significant celestial reminder that was on their journey too, right before they met the King. We see that in a few days. We also know that it spread out about approximately 2 weeks from that point either way too. So very soon we're going to be able to say and see visually, out in your backyard, you'll be able to see Jupiter standing still in relation to the other stars. That same sign. And it's seen after midnight even now. So many reminders, so many things telling us that we should be watching. And we should be making ourselves ready because we expect our Lord to show up very soon. Let us be found as the wise, going forward with what we do know. We will get wisdom as we go forward. We will be shown things later in our journey that we will not have seen at the very beginning. We will understand things further along that we would not understand at the beginning. As we diligently seek Him, He will give wisdom and insight. As we hunger and thirst for things of righteousness, we will be filled. But we have to follow His instructions. We have to look at what He wants us to look at. And we have to research what He wants us to research and do our homework on studying about our Redeemer. He gives us so many clues to point us in the right direction, to things that will catch our attention, to the things that we should study, to the patterns that we should research, to how we should even do our homework, who we should look at, different characters involved in the prophecy. But it all depends on when these things begin to come to pass. Then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. This is why we look up. This is why we diligently seek Him, knowing our redemption, our Redeemer, is drawing nigh. And may He find us wise and faithful servants who, desiring to see Him face to face, we purify ourselves even as He is pure, and we serve Jesus Christ first and highest above all else. Maranatha.